Harry. Hi, Livy. So, can you remember where we were in the Enchanted Wood? The children had found out about the Enchanted Wood and the faraway tree, and they know that the faraway tree is magic. So, this today is going to be when they first go up the tree. So this is when it starts to get exciting. Oh, do you know where I am this morning? I'm not with the bears because they're busy. So see if you can guess which room in the house I'm in. Okay, so chapter 2. The children decided the very next day that they were going to go into the Enchanted Wood and find the faraway tree. They didn't know how they were going to find it because they actually had no idea which one it was. But as they entered the wood, they found the brownies, one of the brownies, and he said that he would take them to the tree. And when they got to the tree, they couldn't believe how big it was. It was huge. They couldn't see the top of it because it went right up into the sky. So they decided to climb. When they started to climb, the other 4 brownies appeared and they yelled at them and said, "You'll be captured if you climb up that tree. It's dangerous." And the 3 children laughed and said, "No, it's just a tree. The faraway tree is fun." So off they went. They started climbing, and guess what they saw? The tree seemed to be growing acorns. So Joe said to Bessie, "It must be an acorn tree." Then a little bit further up, they looked and saw that it was growing conkers. "It must be a coarse chestnut tree," they said. "Good gracious! Well, let's hope it will grow apples and pears higher up," said Fanny with a giggle. "It's a most extraordinary tree." Soon they were quite high up. When Joe parted the leaves and tried to see out of the tree, he was amazed to see that he was far higher than the tallest trees in the wood. He and the girls looked down on all the other trees. Joe was higher up than the girls. Suddenly he gave a shout. "I say, girls, come up here by me quickly. I found something queer." Bessie and Fanny climbed up. "Why, it's a window in the tree," said Bessie. They all peered inside, and suddenly the window was flung open, and a little angry face looked out. "Rude creatures," shouted the angry little man, who looked just like a pixie. "Everybody that climbs this tree peeps in at me. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, there's always somebody peeping." And with that, the pixie disappeared and came back with a jug of water. He flung it at Bessie and wetted her. She gave a "Oh!" "Perhaps you won't peep in people's houses next time," said the pixie with a grin, and he slammed the window shut and drew the curtain. "Well," said Bessie, trying to wipe herself dry with her handkerchief, "what a rude little man." Bessie soon got dry and they kept climbing, and soon they had another surprise. They came to a broad branch that led to a yellow door set neatly into the big trunk of the faraway tree. It had a little knocker and a brightly polished bell. The children stared at the door. "I wonder who lives here," said Fanny. "Shall we knock and see?" said Joe. "Well, I don't want water all over me again," said Bessie. "We'll ring the bell and then hide behind the branch." And that's what they did. A little voice came from inside the door. "I'm washing my hair. If that's the butcher, please leave a pound of sausages." The children stared at one another and laughed. It was odd to hear of butchers coming up the faraway tree. The voice shouted again. "If it's the oil man, I don't want anything. If it's the red dragon, he must call again next week." "Good gracious," said Bessie, looking rather frightened. "The red dragon? I don't like the sound of that." At that moment the yellow door opened and a small elf looked out. Her hair was fluffed out around her shoulders, drying, and she was rubbing it with a towel. "Did you ring my bell?" she asked. "We wanted to just see who lived here." The elf smiled. She had a very sweet face. "Come in for a moment," she said. "My name is Silky." Now you remember Silky because I know she features a lot in this book. We are climbing up the faraway tree to see what's at the top, said Joe. Be careful you don't find something horrid, said Silky, giving each of them a chair in her dark little tree room. Sometimes there are fun places at the top of the tree, but sometimes there are bad places at the top of the tree. Last week there was a land of hippity-hop, which was dreadful. As soon as you got there, you had to hop on one leg, and everything went hippity-hop, even the trees. Nothing ever kept still. It was so tiring. It sounds exciting, said Bessie. Where's our food, Joe? Let's ask Silky to have some. Silky was so pleased. She sat there brushing her beautiful golden hair and ate sandwiches with them. She brought out a tin of pop biscuits, which were yummy. As soon as you bit them, they went pop, and you suddenly found your mouth filled with new honey from the middle of the biscuits. Fanny took 7, one after another, for she was rather greedy. Bessie stopped her. You'll go pop if you eat any more, she said. Do a lot of people live in the tree? Asked Joe. Yes, heaps, said Silky. They move in and out, you know, but I'm always here, and so is the angry pixie. Yes, we've seen him, said Bessie. There's Mr. What's-his-name above me, said Silky. Nobody knows his name, and he doesn't know it himself, so he's called Mr. What's-his-name. Don't wake him if he's asleep, he might chase you. Then there's Dame Wash-a-lot. She's always washing, and she pours her water away down the tree. You've got to look out for the waterfalls. This is a most interesting and exciting tree, said Bessie, finishing her cake. Joe, I think we ought to go now, or we'll never get to the top. Bye, Silky. We'll come and see you again one day. Oh, please do. They all left her dear little room and began to climb. And then they heard a peculiar noise. It sounded like an aeroplane. But there can't be an aeroplane in this tree, said Joe. He peered all around, and then he saw what was making the noise. A funny old gnome sat in a deck chair on a broad branch, his mouth wide open, his eyes fast shut, snoring, just like Gigi. It's Mr. What's-his-name, said Bessie. What a noise! Shall I put a cherry in his mouth and see what happens, said Joe. No, Joe, no. You know what Silky said. He might chase us. I don't want to fall out of the faraway tree and bump down, do you? So they all crept past Mr. What's-his-name and went on climbing up and up. For a long time nothing happened, except that the wind blew in the tree. The children didn't pass any more windows. Then they listened. It sounded like a waterfall, and suddenly Joe guessed what it was. It's Dame Wash-a-lot throwing out her dirty water, he yelled. Look out, Betsy! Look out, Fanny! Down the trunk of tree poured a lot of blue, soapy water. Joe dodged it. Fanny slipped under a broad branch, but poor old Bessie got splashed from head to toe. Joe and Fanny had to lend her their hankies. I'm most unlucky, sighed Bessie. That's twice I've been wetted today. Up they went, passing more little doors and windows, but they didn't see anyone else. Then they got to the top, and they saw that the cloud at the very top had a hole in it, but the branches went up. I think we're at the top of the tree. Shall we creep through the cloud hole and see what land is at the top? Let's, cried Bessie and Fanny. And you're going to have to find out tomorrow what land is at the top. I don't know whether you can read it, Harry, but the land is called the Roundabout Land. And tomorrow we'll find out what happens when Joe, Bessie and Fanny visit the Roundabout Land. Hope you've enjoyed today's story. God bless.